Hi everyone, Migs here again, and in the fourth installment of this video in the series, I'm going to show you how to set up your Nvidia Control Panel as well as your in-game settings when it comes to Euro Truck Simulator 2. So let's dive right in. On your desktop, you will right-click and you will open up your Nvidia Control Panel. There we go. We're going to focus on two of these tabs over here. We're going to focus on managing 3D settings as well as configuring the SLI, the surround, and the physics values for your graphics card. The point of this video is to help you configure your multiple display setup, be it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 displays. It can all be set up over here. And you will see as well that this also applies to anything that you run as an SLI. SLI is a bridge between multiple graphics cards so that they can run as one, which in my case is my setup. That's why we have to do a few tweaks to get them to work properly. All right, so in your configure page, which is this one over here, you'll see that in your SLI configuration, if you don't have an SLI, this will not really apply to you, but you can still play around with this because you can configure the setup of your screens, the arranging of the different screens, in which order, and how the bezel of those three screens will apply. And when I say bezel, that means the edge of the actual monitor. If you don't set the bezel, you will get the stretched effect where the two monitors meet, and in game you will notice that there's a disparity in the graphics. Looks like the image has been distorted or stretched. So that's what we're going to address now. All right, as you can see, physics settings, the processor, it's automatically set to auto select. You can see that I have the two cards over here, and you can also run it off CPU. I don't like to strain the CPU because it already has enough to do with all the other processors involved, so I leave it as auto select. That's the best way to do it. And the next thing we're going to do is go and configure our 3D setup. So here we go. As you can see, the page is opened up. This is the setup for the surround. We'll start with the three screens, 1, 2, and 3. Remember, the first time that this appears, mine is set up already, so I'm not going to play around because it takes a bit of work to get it reconfigured. So you'll probably get one, and you can see, yeah, one mother screens which do not display in this aspect ratio, but they are there, believe me. So 2 will be to the right and then 3 to the far right. But anyway, your topology is 1, 2, 3. It shows you which screens you have active, and it shows you as it's running off the one card, my GTX 1080, the number 1 card. But remember, because of the SLI, it only recognizes one card. You can't plug two screens into the one card and a third screen or the other screen into the second card. It just won't work. It won't pick it up as a span display. Your resolution, it will start off with default figures. So what you have to do is, first of all, select the resolution you want. If it's 3 screens, it will probably be this one here, the 5760, 180. It's the recommended one. But you'll see there's another one, bezel corrected. And this gets achieved by selecting your bezels. First thing you want to make sure of is that you lock the position. So your aspect ratio for your vertical 1 and vertical 2, which means your first bezel, which is over here, and the second bezel, which is not visible right now, that those remain equal to one another. Selecting them, I've seen with my setup, you'll get this screen over here. So if I just move this up a bit, and if I change this to, let's change this to 100. Have you noticed how that frame has moved? So I'm going to go back to 60. And you can see that they moved again. So that basically lines up that half of the page with the half that you cannot see now. All right? And those lines literally run parallel to one another. All the lines meet up correctly. And if you select the other one, the other side will open. So that's basically to line things up to give you good proportionality on your game screen. Right? Once you got that set up, you click apply, and it will set up the screens according to these settings. But you will notice that this value here, the resolution value, will come out as 570 by 1080. Once it comes out like that, you then have to select this button, which opens this window. In this window, you then have to select the bezel corrected version, which will pop up over here. which will be this one here. The 5880 by 1080 will pop up over here. You have to click that one and move it across and say OK. Right? Once you've done that, you have to apply again. Once you've applied again, your setup will be complete. Your screens will be correct, the correct bezel, spacing will be correct, everything will be working as it should. If it doesn't, just go back and redo everything, replay this video, do everything again, and you will get it right. It takes a bit of fiddling. It is a bit fiddly, if I can put it that way. But once it's done, you'll be happy that you've done it. Right, I'm going to, once you've applied, you can close the window. I'm going to cancel this up, close it. Now, the next thing we're going to look at is to manage your 3D settings. This page will open. You'll notice here global settings and program settings. Global settings is the overall default settings for the graphics card that you have, right? What we're looking for is in program settings, select the program to customize. In the drop-down box, you'll see all the apps you have on that the graphics card recognizes. We are looking for the Eurotruck one. There we go. That's that one. Okay. Once it opens, you can select whether it shows only programs found on this computer or not. So I don't know if that's going to make a difference, because unless you on a network, that's the only thing I can think of that would have an effect on. But regardless of that, we are going to look at this window now. If you'll notice, all my settings here, if it's not supported, it will be grayed out. All the others will be normal font. The ones that I've adjusted will be in bold. Okay, and you'll notice only 2 of them have been adjusted. And when I say only 2 have been adjusted, I've played with all of these settings. I've played with all of them with specific focus on Eurotruck to give me maximum performance on my graphics and frame rate. And what I've discovered, yes, they have different impacts, but none so much as these 2. So I've literally set everything else to default except for power management mode, which you can select your optimal power, use global setting, that's the default, adaptive, or prefer maximum performance. You select maximum performance. That's the one that you want. You want the machine to perform at its best or at its capacity. All right? That's what you want to do. And then vertical synchronization. That's basically the way that everything from top to bottom gets synchronized while it's in motion. So if you have buildings moving left to right, traffic moving left to right, all those things have to be synchronized. But vertical synchronization, because of the 3 screens, they've got to be optimized to accommodate one another. This you have to set to on. And not on smooth adaptive, on. It must be on. Don't use the global setting on this. Change it to on. You'll be happy that you did. And then you'll notice that in-game, I'm going to enable it as well. And I'll explain it to you once we get there. Once you've applied again, your setup will be complete. But anyway, that's the crux of the whole thing. There's other things you can play with, but it's not worth a mention. You can change the resolution. But those are the 2 main ones that you need to make your game perform better. All right, so let's move on to the graphics page. Okay, and we have arrived on the game screen. What we're going to do now is go into the options menu, and we're going to select graphics. Once the graphics page is opened up, this is basically the settings I've got set up for my gameplay, for my triple screen setup. As you can see, everything's flowing nicely. By default, it will show up, you can select this, full screen mode, on or off. Okay, so full screen mode on means the whole screen is covered. There's no taskbar, nothing. If you turn that off, you'd be able to jump between the tabs and your taskbar, between the game and the taskbar, whatever's open in the background, quite easily. In this mode, full screen mode, you'll have to pause the game and then Alt tab to go into your desktop, or alternatively, you'll have to close the game and go to your desktop. So that's the full screen mode. Brightness, I like to keep it around the 50 to 60%. It helps with driving at night, especially the darker nights. The country is more closer to the equator. Nights tend to be darker there, and having the thing set too low, it just becomes too dark. It's not drivable, it's not enjoyable. It's basically driving something and everything else is black around you. So it's not enjoyable. And you can go as bright as you want. Just remember, the repercussion of going too bright is during the day you're going to have a lot of bloom. You're going to have a lot of brightness. It's also not playable. Enough about that. Resolution, it's default, is what the graphics card sets to the game. But you can change it if you want to run a smaller size. You'll see that mine are very close, 5760 1080 and a 5880 by 1080. As I showed you earlier in the Nvidia Control Panel, that bezel correction is what causes this deficit. All right, we've got 120 pixels missing between the two, and if you recall, the bezel I did 60 and 60 because of the two bezels, right and left. So there's your difference of 120. But I keep it to 580. That's what the game has picked up. Refresh rate, there's also a default, comes out with a default number. I don't know what yours will be. Mine was on 59, but 60 is available, so I pushed it to 60. Okay, vertical synchronization. As you can recall from the Nvidia Control Panel, we enabled it. And here it's also enabled. It makes no sense, but with playing around with this value a few times, I noticed that now and then the screen does this funny thing, especially on the main screen. I don't know if it's a graphic related issue or whatever the case may be. Maybe it's my graphics card just doesn't like it. But I tend to get a line across the screen on my middle screen. And it's almost like a split screen. So if you're driving along and you take a turn, the screen looks like the one half of the screen will lag behind the other half. And I couldn't understand what that was. In most cases I would restart the game and it would go away. But then eventually I started playing around with this, and by enabling this, I noticed that it resolved the problem immediately. So maybe it will work with you. I don't know if that really is the situation, but since then I've kept this enabled as well. I mean, you've got the option to disable and to use economic. So economic saves energy on notebooks and laptops and that kind of thing, but Euro Truck, if you're playing it, try and get a PC, really. It's the only way to play this game. And then your advanced graphical settings, the simple settings. You'll notice when you set it up for the first time, there's a value over here. You can set it to what you want. My suggestion would be set it to Ultra. That will pick up what your computer is capable of doing, and then tweak it on the advanced settings. Okay. So what I use, the scaling 100%. It can go up to 400% if you really want to get creative. If you really have a real tough machine. Mine can handle about 200%, but I don't see the justification because I'll explain to you as we go along. 100% does give you good scaling, especially when it comes to the towns and cities, the buildings, the general appeal of the environment. Scaling is what gives you the detail. For me, I'm happy at 100%. If sometimes I feel like I want a bit more detail, I'll push it to 150. But at 100%, I'm quite satisfied. Below that, it's not worth playing because then it looks like you're playing Minecraft. It becomes blocky and blurry, and it's not fun. But at 100%, coupled with a few of these settings done here, you really get a nice visual effect. Anti-aliasing, if I'm saying it correctly, that's disabled. I've played around with it. I don't really know what it does. All I know is it hits my frames. That's what I did notice. So when I enabled it, low, medium and high, the frames took a hit. I disabled it. I don't notice a difference in my gameplay. Maybe somebody can enlighten me on that one. Screen space ambient occlusion, the same thing. I keep it disabled. I don't notice differences. What I have played around with this a bit and noticed that in cab, the shadows reflection on the windscreen, on the interior of the cab, that sometimes has an impact, but not so much so that I can say it definitely is that. So again, if somebody knows better than me, please enlighten me. I'm learning as much as you guys are. So I'll keep that disabled. Depth of field, it's a given. Switch that on. Sun shots, I've explained in my earlier videos. It's a thrill to have this. Especially early morning as the sun starts coming through the cloud, over the horizon, through the trees. Those rays coming through the trees. It's really something I love it. So mine's on. Color correction also helps with the visual range, the HDR, HDR, correct. Reflection scaling. Alright, this one is a biggie. What it does is reflection of windows, mirrors, anything with a reflective value, bodies of water, that kind of thing. It's the same similar setup with scaling, except that it's on your reflective side. That also helps. You can, I think, yeah, maximum is 200%. 100% is more than adequate. It gives you what you need. Lower than that, it's not worth it. Reflection detail. This is the detail that will reflect. If you set it too low, a lot of towns in the vanilla map of Europe, on the highways and expressways, you'll have these boundaries, these glass, looks like glass boundaries, barriers, and they show a reflection. On low, you're not going to see the detail so much. Medium gives you good reference. High, I think it's just too much for the game. It starts taking the realism out of it. So medium is my number. Vegetation detail, as I explained it in the video where you set up your config file. This has a huge impact on the game. You have the low, medium, high values. What it does, it gives you detail of the vegetation. It gives you how realistic the trees are going to look. So the higher you go, the more realism you have. But remember, with higher realism, more frames are required, and that's self-explanatory. More frames, more CPU usage, more RAM needed. So if you've got those tools, by all means, knock yourself out. I like it on low because it still gives me plenty detail. I still get the detail I'm looking for. Enough to immerse me in the fact that I could be almost in a real driving scenario. Grass density, again, disabled, low and high. Disabled basically removes all grass, all vegetation of the smaller nature. I'm not talking about trees and that. I'm talking about little shrubs and flowers and grass and wheat and, you know, maize fields, that kind of thing. That will all be removed. You'll have these flat lands of texture, and it's going to look like you're playing a game in Minecraft. So if your machine can't handle it, this is one way to help improve the frames hugely. But if your machine can, set it too low, you will be happy with that setting. Shadow quality, disabled, low, medium, high. Disabled, again, if you're quite happy to just be playing a generic game, this is the setting for you. It really it helps with the frames. Low, medium and high is debatable which one you can use, because high, your frames take a hit. Medium, not so much. Low, even better. But when it comes to actual visual aspect of those settings, I can't tell you the difference. I really can't. So I've set it to low, helps me with frames, and I still get the quality I'm looking for with the shadows. Now, this is where it counts, the shadow texture size. If you really want to get into the detail of the shadow quality, then you set this to high. But believe me, the low value is very good. While you're driving along, the shadows that are cast on the road, from trees, from buildings, from other vehicles, perfect. I have no complaints on it. So this is one aspect of the game that they really nailed it. So low setting is more than adequate. And I've got a high-end machine, and I'm quite happy with that figure. Weather quality, now that's a different story. Low, medium and high. Low, terrible, don't even waste your time there. Medium, not so bad, you still get a bit of detail in the sky. And I use high. Ultra, I can't see the difference between high and ultra. I think maybe the brightness aspect of it, the HDR effect of it, the bloom effect maybe changes a bit, but high is very adequate, gives you realism, and it gives you what you're looking for in your weather quality. Mirrors, here we go, mirror quality. Again, low, medium, high. Low, blurry, blocky, but the middle ground of this is medium. In my experience, it works very well. It gives me the definition I need, it gives me the distance I need, it gives me the resolution I need. I'm quite content with medium, and my frames are quite happy. Mirror resolution, again, you can decide what you want to do. If you want to make the things look blurry, blocky, or super fine, high definition, that's all up to you. Yeah, like I told you before in my previous videos, I'm a sucker for seeing how things happen in the mirrors, how cars approach, the distancing, the lights at night, that kind of thing. I like my mirrors to be a main focal point of my gameplay. So yeah, we'll leave that on high. Mirror distance, if you guys recall, going back to the config file, there was a value there for mirror distance, or looking back, something, if I can't remember exactly, but you'll remember the default was on 200. I've set mine to 1000. So low, medium, high and ultra. I suppose if you set it to ultra, it would give you the 200 value, which is in your config file as a default. I've set mine to 1000. That's why I've got a custom value in there. All right, so that is mine. It stays on custom. Texture quality. This is where it gets interesting. Texture quality is basically, I mean, it's obvious what it means. Texture quality, the quality of the textures, but it applies to where I've seen the biggest differences: road signs, traffic signs, information signs, all to do with fonts and lettering in the distance as you approach. For example, you're approaching a signboard giving you the distance to the next town. So you'll have the town's name and the how many kilometers to the left. From a distance, if you set that to low, you will not, it's not legible. You cannot make out what it is until you get very close to the thing. And even so, when I say very close, I'm talking about between 20 and 30 meters. Then you'll start seeing what it actually, what's written there. But if you're traveling at 80 k's an hour, by the time you can make out what it says, you would have missed the sign. So low is a no-go. Medium improves, but you still have shortcomings. The distance is the issue. High is the way to go. You can start seeing the signs from a distance. It does have a little bit of a hit on the frames, but you know what? It's something I can live with. It's something that I can play around or accept, because my game, I have 100 mods in my game, and remember, everyone competes for space, for CPU power, for RAM. Every single mod requires some of the pie, and the minute you set these settings to higher values, it's less that the mods can use. So remember, you have a pie that you got to share between all these components, and the ones who hog the most are the ones who are going to win the fight. And those are not the ones that you want winning the fight, because they are not the ones giving you the gameplay or the frame rates that you want. So it's a game of give and take. You got to know where to give and where to take. And I take in the quality, but I'll give back in traffic volume or traffic density or grass density. Do you understand? It's all about the case about your personal preferences, what you expect out of your simulator. Anisotropic filtering, this one's a nice one. Helps with the blurring effect in the distance. So if you set it to minimal, your distance becomes blurred. It's like somebody who's not wearing his glasses, somebody who can't see very far. That's the effect you're going to have. The minute you set that, some people set it all over. Turn it up to max. Believe me, the difference with max on the frame is not that high, and it just changes the way the game looks when you're driving along, especially in the distance, especially if you've got scenery, mountain ranges, that kind of thing, you know, approaching a tunnel and there's a waterfall in the distance, whatever. It has an impact and it makes it very enjoyable. So guys, take it from me, that's my settings. Normal maps, that's all personal preference. Traffic headlights, if you want them on or not. Secondary vehicle lights, again, light visibility ranges. This has got to do with that light span factor and that light distance factor. We discussed this in my config file setup video. Basically, when you're driving down the road at night in the town and you can see the street lights at the end of the road where the town ends, and they look very dim. By changing those numbers or those values in the config file, the defaults were at 1, we changed them to 4. It helps to brighten up the area that's right at the end, plus enhance the span factor of that light effect in that area. So it adds to the realism of the game when it comes to lighting. Put it that way. And then you guys know what I feel about pedestrians. It's a no-go for me in the game. I see enough of them on the road every day, so I don't need them in my game. And they also just hog the frames. But yeah, that's just my opinion. Once you've changed all these, don't forget to apply. And once they're set up, you're ready to go back into your game. And that's basically what the game settings are. The next thing is to play the game and see what changes you made, how it will impact on the game. And take it from there and start tweaking from there. So we've come to the end of another video. As always, if you liked what you saw, please hit that subscribe button and click on the alert so you can be the first one to know when new content has become available. Hit that like button and share it with your friends and with someone you think could benefit from this video. Any comments or requests you may have, drop those in the comments below and I'll be sure to respond to every one of them. I really hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll catch you guys and girls on the next one.